Repairs to the Ogdensburg Municipal Marina are likely to begin next fall. Ice, wind, and waves from a December of 2022 blizzard caused extensive damage to the docks, many of them breaking free from their anchored positions. Director of Planning and Development Andrea Smith gave an update on the project at a city council meeting tonight. Smith says the city has been working with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and the Department of Homeland Security to get funding for the project.
Just due to timing, we're really kind of looking at right now a construction schedule of October 1, 2025 through March of 2026. So it's still a little ways out.
Smith says the damage is likely more than $500,000. The project is expected to go out to bid next April.